Welcome everybody. This is Tom Tringham. This is screenprintingartist.com. If you go to screenprintingartist.com, just sign up real quick for my newsletter. You can check out the other tutorials there. And I have some cool courses coming up, so make sure to check those out as well. I'm going to go ahead and dive in to this demo. And tis the season, let's go ahead and create a Merry Christmas logo. For those of you that do this sort of thing. And it's always good to do a little vintage logo. We got this font off of, I think it was defont.com. Sometimes you can get a nice font. This one is free for any use that you want to use. There's a couple things with free fonts occasionally that you want to tweak. Some cases legibility isn't ideal. In this case, there's a couple of characters that I might want to fix before I go ahead and render it out. So I'm gonna go ahead and I typed it up. I put it in this set font. This is the name of the font here. I'm clicking on it. I'm gonna hit Control K, which is gonna break it apart. And then I want to fix specifically I want to fix the E, the Y, and maybe the A here, just real quick before I go ahead and render it. I'm not going to do a lot of dramatic stuff here, other than I'm just going to break this apart. So now it's, as you can see, it's still text. So I can, as soon as I Control K, it breaks them into individual text characters. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and select everything again. So Control A, and then I'm going to hit Control Q. And what that does, it converts all the images to, or all the character pieces into curves. And then in this case, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. Actually, I'm going to delete that. I'm going to go ahead and change my offset to 0. So my duplicates will go right on top of my previous ones. And that's useful if you want to do this kind of thing here. And I'm going to go ahead and trim this. So I'm going to make a little box here. Let's go ahead and zoom in just one more because I want to do this kind of quickly here. I'm going to go ahead and go to wireframe mode. And that's Alt V W for the quick key. I'm going to go ahead and click that. I'm going to make this, and so I lined it up right on that side. I'm going to go ahead and click this. I'm going to trim it. Remember, that's a duplicate on top, just so in case I don't like my result. And then I'm going to break this apart. So I click on that, and then I can hit Control K. And then now I have this piece, right? And so with this piece, I can kind of make it touch, which is really what I want to do here, to kind of make it a little bit more legible. I'm just going to rotate it here like this. I'm going to make it touch to make it a little bit more of a definitive E. And then I can kind of use a reference point here to make a new top on it. Like that. Double click. And I just double click in these areas, and that'll enable me to make a shape that I can have minimal amount of nodes. And I double click here, and then I hit curve. So I converted them all to curves, and then I can come back in here and I can arch this, create a nice kind of shape like that. And I want it to tie into this shape, so I can create an extra node here. And then just kind of arch this shape a little bit like that. Okay. And then this shape here, I can just arch as well, so it's kind of like even with it. Just adjust it a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect because I'm going to actually trim it one more time. I'm going to go ahead and make it symmetrical there. I'm going to pull this up. So I'm getting it pretty close here, and then you'll see what I'm going to do. And I just kept this as a reference below, but I don't need it anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that just so it doesn't get confusing. And then you can see I have this here, and I may just rotate it out just a little bit because I want it to be just touching right about there. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take these two pieces and I'm going to weld them. And then you can see how this isn't a perfect slice here, so I'm going to go ahead and click that. I'm going to warp it down just a little bit, and then I'm going to go ahead and merge this with this piece here, and then I can just click here and I can just even out these nodes. So I'll just click here, here, and then I'll just get rid of the ones in the middle that look weird. And then you can always kind of average your other ones. And that's usually pretty close to a good result that'll work for, and made a little bit better of an E, just a little bit. And then this Y, I'm going to do that next. So the Y, I'm just going to make a straight block here, so it's not going to be a big change. I just want to be close enough that I'm not going to cut the wrong area by accident. So I just line that rectangle up visibly as much as I can. I'm just going to trim it here. And again, if I have any awkward areas in here that, you know, don't line up perfectly, I can always delete those. Just use the delete key real quick. Delete. Looks like it's pretty good elsewhere. There's a couple of pieces. I just get rid of extra nodes just in case I ever need to outline it. And that makes a little bit better of an I, or a Y, I mean. And then the A, I was going to do something similar to what I did here and just merge it together, just because it'll be a little bit more legible. So you basically do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and save this file. Let's go ahead and, here we go, desktop, Merry. Let's go ahead and say Merry Christmas. And we go ahead and take this, we're going to duplicate it. And I'm just going to, real quick, just making a cut shape. You could use the knife tool too if you wanted to. I like to actually, I'm kind of, I don't know, nitpicky as you might say, so I like to create just the size and shape of the cut that I want rather than just a straight line. But in a sense, you could definitely use one of the other tools that CorelDRAW has to cut this shape out, just depending on what you're comfortable with. This is, I'm going to go ahead and Control K, get rid of this big piece here. And actually I can probably get rid of my reference piece here and just delete it. And this I can break apart. And then I have this piece, and what I wanted to do, I'm going to enlarge it just a little bit and then rotate it, because I want it to touch there like that. So I'm just going to come up and be like this, and then this part of it, I'll probably use a reference. Sometimes it's good when you have a oval shape to use a reference like this, because then it'll give you a cleaner result. Go ahead and fix this here, there, and then you use the same center essentially. Control D, duplicate it, and you can create your secondary shape here, which will echo the first shape. And in this case, I'm going to move it over just a little bit, just so that it keeps getting bigger on this side. And then what I'll do is I use this piece and I'll combine it, Control L, and then I'll go ahead and trim it real quick right inside of here. And then I'll trim it where it stops being useful over there. And you'll see what I mean in a second. So I just basically am cutting the bottom half of it off, trim, and then delete. Then you can see this shape is a nice clean shape here. And then what I can do here is I can cut the top of this where it isn't being useful and just replace it. So you just cut that piece off there, trim, and I delete, and then you go ahead and merge it. It doesn't have to match up exactly. I mean, if you have it kind of close, it's a good idea, but it doesn't have to be perfect, because we can always do that little trick. Wow, I really lucked out there. We can always do that little trick with averaging the nodes if you need to. And you know, it looks pretty good. I'm going to stretch it just so it's a little bit bigger and just touching. That's pretty good right there. And then this, I want to have this as a curve a little more. Let's go ahead and curve these. I'm just going to curve this just so it looks a little bit more curvy there. And I'm going to drop this part down. So I just selected all those nodes and I used the nudge tool. And then I'm pretty much ready to go. Just go ahead and weld it all together. And now I have the font a little bit more legible, at least from my standpoint. I tend to like that a little better. Everybody has different taste, but I think it, it'll read just a tiny bit better. Um, and let's go ahead and fix the kerning a tiny bit. This isn't too bad, but our E could probably tuck in because it's pretty close to R. Actually, could have a little bit more space there. You just look for even amounts of space in between. This bottom isn't too bad. S could probably come in just a hair. And then when you're ready, you can combine the two. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to make all this, move it over just a hair, I'm going to make all this one, so Control L. I'm going to select all of this, Control L, and then I can make my C and my M a little bigger, emphasize things a little bit more, move them just a hair closer, and then I can group this. Then I can group this, so I can make two groups. Go ahead and save the file. It's always a good idea to save before you start doing bigger operations. And then we're going to go ahead and make this sign. Let's go ahead and use the envelope tool. I'm going to start with a just an arch. So arch it this way. Then I can grab the outside edge here and enlarge that. Kind of enlarge this side. And then I'll probably slide this whole, I'll slide this whole part down. And if you hold the control key, it grabs both sides when you're in, I think it's called single arc. When you're in single arc, if you hold the control key, it'll grab both sides. If you hold the shift key, it'll do the opposite on the opposite side, in case you wanted to pinch it or something. And then here, what I'm going to do is I want to make a counterbalancing arch here. So I'm going to go ahead and skew it a little bit, just so that it kind of arches this way. And then this one will kind of tuck underneath. And we're going to use an envelope as well, but in this case I'm going to use a free floating envelope. I'm going to go ahead and arc it. Now hold the control key to constrain it to a straight edge here. And then in this mode, I can kind of bring this down just a little bit, and then I'm going to arc it this way first. Here, let me bring this top down so it's not hitting. There. And then this one, same thing. We go up, and then in this one we're going to arch this way. Then you bring your back arch this way. So that way you get this kind of flow. And I'm going to go ahead and drag this part down just to make it a hair bigger. Make sure it stays center here. And then you can tuck it up with the other one. You know, if you wanted to get real nitpicky, you could measure the length here and make sure that, the length here and the length here is exactly the same, and have your arch exactly the same where you wanted it. But for right now, we're just gonna roll onward so we can get this design wrapped up, because Christmas is coming. And bump this over just a hair. We can group it. Save your design. I'm going to make just a quick border here. And using the rectangle tool, I can grab the corners using the shape tool, and then I'll go ahead and curve them. And then if you Control Q, convert it to curves, and then double click and then hit the straight edge, you can get this kind of sharp angle to your curves there, which is kind of nice. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to double click right here and make it a thick outline for this one. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a contour. I'm going to do an outside contour. Click that. I'll probably make it about 0.07 roughly. I'll hit apply. Maybe I'll go a little bit farther because it's fairly big here. We'll go 1. And then I'll hit Control K. And my outside contour, I just want to drop that point size down to like 2. And if you want to go a little further, you can. Just drag it out just a hair. It shouldn't throw the contour off too much. Um, and then this can be here. We'll enlarge it just a little bit. Then we can shrink everything else. There. And then we'll put an outline around this font right here. Let's go ahead and do 8-point black, and then we hit Define, Fill, and Scale with Image here. Let me bring it to the front, Shift Page up, so you can see how it's going to break across that. And then click here, Control D, just nudging it over a little bit. Do like a drop shadow here. It's also got the border on there because we duplicated it. So in this case, I'm going to duplicate this one more time, push it down one, nudge it a couple times, just to make the border just a hair thinner. And I'll fill that with white just in case it peeks out somewhere. And then this top, we can, let's go ahead and save the file. And then we have that. Now we just need an element here and a couple of snowflakes, and we wrap it up. So one way to get a quick element is you can make one. Click here, and you can use your artistic media tool. Zoom in a little bit. Use your artistic media tool here, and you can kind of freehand a couple of shapes here. And then what you want to do is you're basically looking to create like a flourish. So basically create a freehand line there, and then I can create another freehand line like similar to that, kind of going this way. And then what I'll do, I'll go ahead and go freehand tool now. I'll go click here and then go just kind of box around it like this. And then I'll just box around this one as well. And then all we're going to do is just use some shapes and cut out some like leaf shapes. So you're basically just taking this and going here, and you just trim them out. You can just use this to kind of cut. Just go ahead and just use it like a stencil. Go ahead and cut it out. Takes a little bit, but we're almost done right here. You can always adjust the shape of your stencil too if you want to trim. Stretch it out a little bit. And this can shrink as well if it's too big. You just shrink it down a little bit. And then these can be white. And this shape would be black or green, or shift page down. You know, kind of like a holly shape, essentially. And if you're running short on time like we are now, you can, let me go to wireframe mode real quick. You can, let's go ahead and tweak this just a little bit. You can wrap things up here, by just duping it. Delete. Go ahead. Control D. Shrink it a little bit and rotate. Alt E. There you go. And of course, if you wanted to, you can go back artistic media wise, just shrink this a little bit, drop it down, and then you can add, just add like some different pieces to your holly here, just to make it look a little bit more like an actual leaf. Fill all those with white. Whoops, fill that with black. The idea. And then this, of course, we got to have our holly berries here, and then, you know, make a couple of them. It's always a good idea to put a highlight on stuff like this, so you just kind of create a little shape, flatten it a little bit, bring it up to the corner, make it white. Save them, group them. This, of course, can be green. Save your design, no outline on them. If you wanted to have a stem, you could always duplicate that, just drop it down a little bit, and then turn that green, just to kind of give you that stem look. Duplicate it, drop it down a little bit, and then fill it with green. These we can always drop down below it too, just to fit page down a couple, in case they don't line up perfect with it or something here, depending on how nitpicky you want to get. Okay, so you get the idea there. And then this, group these, move them over a little bit just so that they're right on there. Grab the whole thing, we can just adjust the size to fit the shape there. Save it. And then we want to just make a couple little snowflakes here, and they're usually pretty quick to make. So you just basically make a shape like this. Use your shape tool to grab the edges and round them like that. And then what you can do, just real quick, zoom in here, and you could fill it with light blue just for effect. And then what you want to do is duplicate that shape and shrink it, maybe about half size of that, and you rotate it like just a certain percentage off here, like about that much, and then trim it. So just make a rectangle and go ahead and trim it, and then I'm going to go ahead and delete that, and then I'll go in here real quick, and I'll duplicate this again, and I'll rotate it real quick here, and then I'll just create like 1, 2, 3, grab these 3 shapes and kind of duplicate them, and then you cut those real quick. Go ahead and make a freehand here just so I can cut them. Trim it right there. Delete this. This, we can just bring it up a little bit, shrink them down just a tiny bit. there, and then we can duplicate them, and then I can flip them, and then rotate them, and then line them up on the other side. So at that point, you can kind of rotate this off a little bit, and then you can drag it down and duplicate it. And then when you have two, you can duplicate those, flip them, and then you have basically one piece to your snowflake. I like to make a polygon for the middle, and usually snowflakes are 6-sided polygons, so but you know, they can look a little different than that. But you can just go ahead and go in here and then outline that with blue, and then we'll go ahead and blow it up a little bit. Let's go 4 point, and then we'll make sure it's rounded. So I click rounded on the edges, maybe a little hair bigger just so it matches. We'll go ahead and go 8 point. Nope. 6. Let's go 6 point. Say OK. And then we'll center it. If you hold the Shift key, you hit the C key, then it centers it. And then I'll trim it out of here. Trim. Oops. Go ahead and click this, click that, trim. There. And then you can break that apart. Control K, get rid of the extra piece. Delete. And then these can be grouped. And then you can center them on that just to make sure that you're centered. And Shift undelete from the middle, and then drop them down a little bit. And then you can see how well this will copy and rotate. So group it, grab it here, and you right click, you drop it down, and then you just bring it over like this, map it onto that one, and then let's go ahead and look here. And I'll just duplicate it and rotate it. Go right to about there. And then duplicate it again. And go right about to here. And you can always just kind of line it up. Now if I had these circles, if I had the center fixed exactly, then it would work a lot better. But this is just kind of a quick idea on how you can do a quick snowflake here. So we got this group saved. You can bring it in here. Sometimes it's nice if they're not perfectly centered on the thing, so you can kind of do that. Oop. And I made them blue just so I could see them. If I do this, I'll just, just duplicate it, make a smaller one, do the same thing over here, make a smaller one, and I make two like kind of minuscule ones, and then you finish up with like some teeny tiny ones here. And then what you can do here is you just, let me save the file, you just create like a background for this. Background shape. Actually, I'll just go ahead and use a freehand. So you just basically create a background shape that cuts through the middle of it, like this. And this will be like a real light blue here. And then we'll just go outside contour, pretty small, like about 15 steps. Just make sure it's going to white, hit apply. Drop this to the back, and then you can make all these snowflakes if you want. Like, let me grab this contour and just make it a little bigger, just so it fits the shape here. And then you can make all these snowflakes like white through there. And you can see how they kind of reverse out. The middles are still blue, so I gotta adjust those. But here, let me edit that. If I wanted to knock out the centers, I could always say no fill, just in case I want those to be knocked out. And sometimes it's fun to actually take one of these and just go real light, like a light blue, and then drop it down behind everything, and you get this kind of like almost multiplying feeling of this. And these the same thing. You can take all your um, snowflakes that aren't totally wrapped in the light blue. If they're going off the edges too much, you can duplicate them and then just bump them off a couple, drop them down a little bit, and then fill them with light blue, just so you get a little bit of a drop shadow to them. Just so you can see them a little bit, and then bump out here, grab this group, and then duplicate it, take it up to the top here, and I'll flip it around, and I'll drop it behind everything. And you can always shrink it just so that it doesn't kind of get in the way of what I'm doing with this stuff. And then last but not least is to save my file, and I want to put a little color inside of my Merry Christmas here, so I'm going to ungroup this. And what you can do here, make sure you save the file, but before you do this, because every once in a while this will lock up your computer, but basically do an inside contour of this. Since it's a group, you can ungroup it and you can merge it. So I ungroup Control U and then Control L, merged it. I'm going to go with 1. I'm going to go to inside contour. I'm going to go like 3 points. I'll keep it at white, and then I'll hit OK. And then you notice it didn't do the Y. Occasionally it does that, and I'm not sure why. No pun intended there. But sometimes if you have a weird point or something on your font, it'll do that. It won't inside contour. What I'm going to do is control a duplicate, and then I'll hit Control K, and I'll only make the Y, and I'll hit delete. This is kind of a workaround if you ever get stuck with a contour that doesn't work. I'm going to take off the outline, and here I'm just going to do an outside contour first. I'm going to go really small, and I'll do a weird color just so I can see what's going on, and I'll hit OK, and then I'll break it apart, and then I'll delete my original. And sometimes that's enough to enable me to then do an inside contour. So then I bump up my inside contour, and then I hit apply, and then it works. And so it's a weird thing, but I think it just kind of eliminates the whatever issue was there. Hit Control K, and then I go ahead and hit white. So it's a workaround for a little bug if you got a little problem with the software. And then I'm just going to go in here and then go ahead and finish it with the Christmas part of it here. And we go ahead and finish up here. Go ahead and click the bottom one. Again, we're going to ungroup it and merge it. And then create a contour there, break it apart, and then these two pieces, and then this piece, we can combine all those, and then we'll just make a quick fill here. We'll go ahead and make red fill. Let's go ahead and make a fountain fill, and we'll start. In this case, I want one that has 100% 100% black, and then 100% of my magenta and red, just so that we get a higher, whoops, just so that we get a higher density of color. I'll go ahead and throw 100% cyan in there too. Whoops, again, 100. And I'll say okay to all these. And I'll go here. And then this color we'll go ahead and make 100 and 100. And then we can kind of tilt it upwards like this. And then we'll do, say okay, and then we'll break it apart, Control K, and that should give us a bunch of different pieces. Now in this case, I think this one probably had the wrong one selected, so let me go ahead and reselect it. Yeah, here, let me just drag this over here. If you right click and drag, you can say copy fill, and then I don't need an outline to this. And then this one I was having black anyways, so fill it with black. And we don't need an outline. And then what you can do here is break these apart, Control K, and it gives you a little bit more variation. Inside of that, you can always come back, and if you got a bunch of pieces that come apart, you can always merge those, Control L. Sometimes it monkeys with your fountain fill, so you got to go to this, at least in the CorelDRAW menu, you go to this fountain fill selection tool, and you can drag your fountain fill up. If you hold the shift key, you can kind of drag it so that you have a good balance between where you want it to be, and then you can go each letter relatively quickly. Select your pieces, Control L. As long as I just want it black on the bottom of these. This, we can go ahead and make it the darker black on this. It's a darker black, I think. I'll just go ahead and make it darker. And then same thing with this. And then these pieces, same sort of thing. I can hit Control K, breaks them all apart, and then on some of them you'll want to merge them. Sometimes it's a cool look not merging them, but just hit Control L. And then sometimes, like I said, it throws the fountain fill way in the wrong spot, so you got to kind of click here and drag your fountain fill back to where you want it. This looks okay. Probably have to put these pieces together a little bit. Hold the shift key, combine them, Control L, then click this, and again drag your fountain fill where you want it. Have to do the same thing here, Control L, these, just hold the shift key and combine them all, Control L, this, and this, Control L, and these, Control L. Oops, yeah, no, that's right, Control L. So that we just need to here drag the bottom down. You can go through and pretty rapidly click all these. If you have them all selected, that'll come up too. So it's a quick way of doing it. So it's a pretty quick way of getting a nice little graphic you can use for Christmas cards or some other use, and you can play with different options as far as whether you want the the outside border to be red like an accent. You could also make it blue for this, but You can save your work here. Let me just check one thing real quick. My snowflakes, they look okay, but I want to kind of, something here got a little wonky with them. Get rid of that outline. There was an outline on them, on the duplicates. It's making it look a little fuzzy. Just caught that. You can see it still has an outline here, and I don't want that, so I just delete it. And that makes them look like cleaner snowflakes there. Get this one. You hold the control key down, click in to get into your child curve, and then you can edit those pieces. Zoom out. And same thing down here. Let me ungroup it. And what I can do is I can just select the ones that I duplicated. There. Select all those, and I'll deselect the ones on top. So I hold the shift key and just deselect them. And then you'll see right away if there's an outline on it. If there's an outline on it, you just delete it. Say no outline. And that fixed those up. So then I can zoom out, save the file, and I'm ready to print it out. So if you enjoyed this tutorial, I have a lot of extra tutorials coming on for making t-shirt graphics or different types of graphics like this. And so stay tuned and subscribe to my newsletter and watch for the next one.